Hey there, this is my official Vinyl Tag 2021 video for the VC Vinyl Community. I've never done one of these before. This is a tradition of the vinyl community, I found out recently. A subscriber of mine posted on my page the other day that he would like to see what I would come up with for these 20 questions. So this is why I'm doing this. These 20 questions were first posted by a channel called Tales from the Crate, so go check him out. I'm going to try to get through this as quick as possible, so here we go. The first question was a discovery that I made in 2020 on vinyl, and this is it, and this just happened to be released in January 2020. It's by a guy named Tyler Baum. He's kind of an alternative indie rock experimental artist. The release is called Thrift Store Shampoo. Now, the cool thing about this release, and there you see the vinyl, it was only released in thrift stores. There were 500 pressed. I have number 163 of 500, as you can see there. And they were only put out in thrift stores. Not available online, not available in record stores. This guy went and hand dropped them at loads of thrift stores. And if you look really closely, I don't know if you could see, but if you look closely, there's actual fake wear and tear made on these. You know, little grinds to the corners. I've seen some. I think I saw one in a thrift store that had the whole corner of the cover ripped off. And I didn't buy it because I thought, oh, it's damaged and I don't want to buy that. Before I realized these were only released in thrift stores. So pretty cool just to have. I mean, just because it was only released in thrift stores. Next question was a quarantine buy, something I bought while in quarantine over the last year. And it's this, one of my favorite bands, the Dickies. And this is a live album when they played in New Jersey at City Gardens in 1982. It's a beautiful green vinyl. And yeah, I love the Dickies. I'm a Dickies completist. I like to have everything the Dickies made. I do some work for the Dickies. I've seen them over the years, over the decades, many times. And I am proud to call them my friends. The Dickies, everyone. Now, next, something I want to find in 2021. There's a guy named Oliver Tree that does this interesting kind of like deviant pop music, I would call it. Oliver Tree is supposed to come out with an album this year called Ugly is Beautiful on vinyl. I really want to get it. It's been postponed for months. Every release date that comes up gets postponed. So anyway, hoping to get Oliver Tree Ugly is Beautiful this year on vinyl. Now, a box set. And I had to think long and hard because I have some great box sets. But I've chose to show this one. Throbbing Gristle, Industrial Godfathers here. It's a 5-album set. It came out in 1982. It's really cool. I won't go through them all with you. But anyway, there's the box set. There's a booklet in there. The only thing I'm missing from this set is the pinback button. A little Throbbing Gristle TG lightning bolt pinback button that came with it. If you wanted to get this, might end up paying around $200, somewhere around there for it, depending on condition. Again, I am missing the little pinback button, but that's all. A concept album is the next question, and here's my choice. King Diamond, Abigail, some very evil heavy metal here, and Abigail was his first concept album, and there you see King Diamond. This came out in 1987. And if you were going to find one of these online, depending on condition, you could pay up to $75 for it. Great, though. I saw King Diamond on, he did a tour of this album a couple years ago. I saw him in New York City. It was amazing. There's video of this show on my YouTube channel. If you just search for King Diamond, you'll see one of the best blasphemous stage shows you've ever seen in your life. So the next question. A record that shows a band who changed directions, and this is a really great example of that. The Village People, Renaissance. My favorite Village People record, probably. This came out right when disco was pretty much dying dead, 1981. So they changed their image to be new wave, and there's actually a couple of punk songs on here. The best one is called Food Fight. Food Fight is arguably the best Village People song ever. It kind of sounds like the Dickies. So look up Village People Renaissance. This is a sealed copy, which is pretty cool. Again, this came out in 1981. Village People Renaissance. I love it. Next, a white label promo. This is a pretty good one. Metallica, Master of Puppets, white label promo. Now this has an interesting sticker on the front kind of telling DJs what is on the record there. If you can see, this is really difficult to find, especially in this condition. This came out in 1986. You could expect to pay about $300 for something in such gorgeous condition as this. Now, a compilation. They want me to show a compilation album. So this is what I chose, simply because the cover is so cool. This is called You'll Hate This Record, and it came out in 1983. It's got bands like G.G. Allen, The Fuck Ups, a bunch of really brutal, painful stuff on it. It's got rubber barf. There you go, the three-dimensional rubber barf there glued to the cover. The only time I ever saw this record with the barf glued on it was when I got this long, long ago. And you could expect to pay maybe $40 for this if you find it in this condition. But yeah, You'll Hate This Record. There we go. The next question. An LP you have a story about. I have a story about this LP here. Now, let me just mention, I tell a lot of stories about a lot of records on my channel. Usually they're autographed records, so I tried to stay away from autographed records in this pile. But this record has an interesting story. These are some friends of mine from Ohio called Sockeye. Sockeye, this is their album called Retards, Hiss Past My Window. And there's some really groovy artwork here on the cover by one of the guys in the band named Food Fortunata. And that monkey, that stuffed monkey you see there in the middle, in pink, that's actually my monkey, Chumpy. You know, and Chumpy was a friend of ours, and you can see here these weirdos. But anyway, Sockeye does this really weird brand of like just the most asinine, childish, just taboo, ridiculous, offensive music. This is pretty hard to find. Came out in 1994, but you would probably expect to pay probably about $50 for this if you found it in great shape these days. And let me just mention, I did some artwork for the inner sleeve there for these guys way back when. And I don't want to show too much of it, but there you go. Oh, and by the way, let me show you my sock monkey, Chumpy. He's still around. And here's Chumpy. Still alive, still doing good. He's met many famous people over the years, but here he is. What's up, Chumpy? All right, the next question was, pull out something from your collection that was not released on vinyl that you think really does need to be released on vinyl. And this is that release. This is the soundtrack to a movie called I Am Thor. It's about my friend John Michael Thor, a Canadian rock and roll superstar. He's been doing it since the 70s. There was a great movie that came out about him in 2016, a documentary called I Am Thor. Actually, yours truly, I am known as Thunder Geek in the Thor community, and I am in this movie, and also my band that I was in with Thor, a little punk rock project we had called Thor and the Ass Boys. It's ridiculous, and I'll tell you about that maybe some other time, but our songs are on here, and this only came out on CD, and I really want this I Am Thor soundtrack to be on vinyl, of course, because I'm on it, right? I gotta have that on vinyl. So next up, the next question is, show something very common from your collection and then show something uncommon. Okay, so here's the common thing. Very common record. Cheap Trick Live at Budokan. Whoops. Cheap Trick Live at Budokan. Great record. I grew up listening to this. Of course, the insert booklet is in here. Great stuff. You know, back then, a lot of bands put great inserts in their records, little booklets and stuff. And actually, the reason I started listening to Cheap Trick was because they mentioned my favorite band, which was Kiss back then. They mentioned Kiss in a song called Surrender. Got my Kiss records out was the lyric. And that's what made me buy this Cheap Trick record when I was a kid. And then I became a lifelong Cheap Trick fan. I've seen them a few times in concert, and I've met them, and they're great. I love Cheap Trick. So now, that was common. Now let's show the uncommon from my collection. This is a band called Sound Barrier. They're a heavy metal band from the 80s, and this came out in 1984. It's called Born to Rock, and as you can see here, it's a little different than most heavy metal bands from back then because they're all black dudes, and they're great. They sound kind of like the era, you know, Motley Crue and Rat and that kind of stuff. Really love this record, though. It's not very valuable, I don't think, maybe $20 or something, but I love the record. Sound Barrier, very uncommon heavy metal record from 1984. And the next question is to show an EP released, extended play, and this is one of those. A very hard to find record by Hose, and the EP is called Hose. And for those of you who don't know about Hose, especially if you're into hip hop, now this is not a hip hop record. This is kind of a post-punk noise, just grimy noise, horrible, brutal, bass-heavy, recorded in a basement kind of noise. The cool thing about this is that it was the very first record released with the Def Jam logo. And now you ask, why is that? And look at that hand-drawn logo there. A little different than what the Def Jam logo looked like later. This record had Rick Rubin in it. Rick Rubin was the guy, obviously, who was with the Beastie Boys early on and who started Def Jam Records. And this is just such a great record. I've loved this ever since I discovered it in the 80s. It came out in 1983. You can expect to pay about $100 for this if you find it anywhere. It has covers on it like Super Freak, Fire. This is just Dope Fiend is my favorite song on the record. But yeah, good luck trying to find this, the very first Def Jam release. Now, a girl group. Next question on the VC question list. And this, when I think of girl groups, the first thing that comes to mind is the Go-Go's. I love the Go-Go's. Saw the Go-Go's way back in the day in the 80s. In Excess opened up for them. It was great. This is a bootleg LP called Everybody's Fantasy. It's unclear where this was recorded. I would guess it was on the Vacation tour in the early 80s. Great record though. I love these old style bootlegs with just a piece of paper glued to the cover. Love it. And you can expect to pay about $40 for this if you find it for sale somewhere. Now, a cover that I love. This was really difficult because I like a lot of records simply for their covers. But I went ahead and picked something that was not only great to look at, but it also felt good. It was tactily pleasing. And here we go. It's the leather-bound cover of Motorhead's No Remorse album. This came out in 1984. Looks good and feels good. Amazing quality, amazing condition. Got the inner sleeve there. I've had this forever and ever and ever. Can't remember where I got it, but I was so tickled that it was in such great shape. I mean, I had to have bought this decades ago. You could expect to pay around $100 for this in this condition. And there we go. Motorhead, No Remorse. R.I.P. Lemmy. Next, the record I've listened to the most in my life. And I'm sure there's a lot of people my age that have this record in their collection and who have listened to it as much as I have. But I've listened to this record all the time since I was a kid. Kiss Alive 2 made a huge impression on me when I was a kid. Of course, my copy here has all the inserts, the tattoos, the merch order form, the booklet. Love this record. And I got to tell you, back in the day when you would put on a record and just look at the cover over and over again, this cover got flipped and the gatefold got opened and the booklet got paged through over and over and over again as I listened to it. And love it. I saw Kiss on this tour. It was probably 1977. I believe it was December 77 when I saw Kiss on this tour in Cleveland, Ohio. I was 9 years old. Awesome. So there's the record that I listen to all the time, all my life, and love it. Okay, now the next question was an OG copy, and I assume that means original pressing or original gangster copy of a record that I had to have. And it's this band, Men Without Hats, the synth pop band from the 80s. Of course, they had this huge song, you can dance if you want to, the safety dance. But they have so much more great material than that. And this is their very first 10-inch EP called Folk of the 80s. Really hard to find. I also have the 12-inch version of this, which was released around the same time, 1980. You could expect to pay about $40 for this if you find it. I love this band. Most every album they did is all great, especially their most recent one, which came out a few years ago. I can't recall the name of it right now. It's got a black cover, but anyway, it's good stuff, good stuff. So here's the 10-inch of Men Without Hats from Canada, I might add. The last album I purchased, which was just a few days ago, I got this for $0.25 at a thrift store. Still in the shrink wrap. One of my favorite 80s kind of hair metal era bands, Kicks. And it's got the hype sticker still on it. The vinyl is in beautiful condition. $0.25 I paid for this, and I was so excited. It was one of those times where you go in a thrift store and find something and you almost pee your pants a little bit. That is how I felt when I found this for $0.25. And if you want to get this online, this came out in 1988, by the way. If you want to find this online in this condition, probably pay $60 or more for it. But $0.25! Tell me that's not a score. Now, an album they don't get. That's the next question. Meaning, I think something that I'm into that most of my friends and most of the people in the vinyl community are not into. And that is one of my favorites from the 80s, Debbie Gibson. Her Out of the Blue record is a masterpiece in my opinion. Now, the reason I started listening to her was kind of a joke. I was in a punk rock band in the 80s, and I had a very punk rock car with spray paint and stickers all over it, and I was just Mr. Punk Rock. So I would have my friends in the car, we would drive places, and to start irritating them, I bought this on cassette. I think I found it on sale somewhere really cheap. I bought it on cassette and played it in my car just to mess with people. And I started really liking it, and I became a big fan, and I joined her fan club back in the 80s. So Out of the Blue. Anyway, pop genius right here. She's great because she writes her own material. She sings in perfect pitch. She doesn't need an auto-tune, nothing. She's a fantastic performer. In fact, I saw her live last couple of years. She opened for New Kids on the Block, and probably like 7 other bands or something were playing, 7 other performers, not bands. And she was the only one that played an instrument on stage. She actually played the piano and sang on stage. Everybody else just danced around to whatever backing music they had playing, but Debbie Gibson. And also, I do have the 2020 reissue of this on blue vinyl, thanks to my good friend Tim, and my moderator here on this channel. Thank you for the blue vinyl version of this excellent record, Tim. Into the collection they go. Now, last 2 questions is a punk album. They want me to show a punk album. Wow, what punk album do I show? I got a lot of those, right? This is the one I'm going to show you, Dead Kennedys and God We Trust. It was, I think, the very first punk record I ever bought. And I'll tell you a little story about that. It was because, let's see, when did this come out? This came out in 81. So I probably discovered this in 82. And it was because there was one of those high school pep kind of rally things they do. Not a pep rally, but it was this thing they do every year where they had Trucker Day or Farmer Day, or in this case it was Punk Rock Day. And when you dress up like a certain thing, like Punk Rock Day, all the kids in junior high school would come to school dressed as what they thought punk rock was. And I had really never experienced punk rock very much. I was more into new wave and heavy metal. So I went to the store looking for punk rock, and I found Dead Kennedys, and I was like, man, that cover speaks to my Catholic damage, hardcore, and more great imagery. And I bought this because I loved the name of the band, and when I went to school on Punk Rock Day, I dressed in a homemade Dead Kennedys punk rock shirt, and I got made fun of, and I got pointed at and called, derogatory names, and that's when I really kind of felt, wow, this punk thing is pretty cool. I'm pissing off the normals, and I get to have records with great imagery. And so Dead Kennedys, In God We Trust, my very first punk album I ever bought. Now, last one is my favorite 2020 reissue on vinyl. Now, I don't get a lot of new vinyl. I don't hardly ever buy myself new vinyl just because, it's not the best financial decision for me to make, and I already have a ton of records and vinyl and tapes and CDs and all kinds of stuff. So anyway, I very rarely buy stuff. But this year, my favorite I pulled out of my collection was this 2020 Rocktober reissue of Devo's Duty Now for the Future album. It originally came out in 1979. Great colored vinyl. I have not opened it yet. Don't know if I will because, this is the only copy I have right now. But yeah, this is my favorite 2020 reissue, and that is my Vinyl Tag 2021 video. Thanks for everybody for watching my videos, for subscribing to my channel. May the rock and roll gods bless you as they have blessed me, and now see you next time.